um, architectural education. I would speak up, but I think is it the can't be that close, surely. It's right up close and personal, is it, this thing? So welcome anybody to really the start of a very interesting 2-week period. My name's Roger Zagolovich. I find myself I've been involved in the AA for a long number of years, and when I was your age, I was sat in this room doing that. But sadly, that was some possibly 40 years ago. But anyway, that time flies when you're having fun. I'm past president, and I've been asked by council to chair, and by the search committee to chair the search committee. And I'm very ably assisted by the search committee members, which you've got in front of you. And for those of you who are new to the school, those of you who are not, obviously forgive me for repeating this, but those of you new to the school, the search committee was constituted at the end of last term, and the school community voted on the size and the representation of the school community, and agreed that it would consist of 10 representatives, 3 nominations drawn from the AA Council, which is myself and Dayan Sujic and Tim McFarlane, 3 nominations from the AA students, which are Francoise, Julia and Bart, 3 nominees from the teaching staff, which are Sandra, Simos and Charles, and 1 member for the administrative staff, which is Joel. And the 10 of us have met up on a number of occasions over the summer to really try and look at what the mechanism of appointing a new head of school. And we've tried to look at it in 2 ways. To start with, we've tried to create a set of guidelines, and those guidelines are really covering a number of key points. And the issue really for all of us, I think, and the issue particularly for a new head of school, is that new head of school that's going to come in from anywhere across the world really needs to understand the way in which the AA school works, and the way in which there is the school community informs the decision process. And I think I'm going to flick to the next slide. And on this slide, we actually see outlined 3 stages of the approach that the search committee are taking to develop the shortlist, or develop the selection, and go through to a process of final selection. We've made the initial announcement, but that really isn't, the initial announcement is not going to start really kicked off till after the guidelines for the post, which is going to be circulated around to you by email and on the forum, I believe, waiting really for you to respond to it, and for us at the search committee to have another meeting with the school community later in November, where we can actually get some feedback from you, giving us time then to make the announcement or make the advertisement for the selection of candidates on the 10th of December, giving candidates a month to reply to us by the 10th of January, and then we will then deal with our initial selection, our initial weeding out of those candidates very quickly by the 14th of January, and that completes our stage 1 of the process. Stage 2 starts with our first interviews, and then it's followed up by a second set of interviews, and then a final selection of a shortlisted candidates by the 25th of February 2005. And stage 3 starts with the announcement of the names of those shortlisted candidates, because they become public, and this is obviously part of the tradition of the AA, that in an application for the head of school or chair, that at that point, on March the 4th, 2005, the search committee will announce that shortlist. Following on from that, and forgive us at the moment, we don't quite know from a logistics point of view whether we're talking about the week of the 7th or 11th of March or following on from the 9th to 13th of May. That will be the week at which presentations from each of the shortlisted candidates will be made to you, the school community, by each of those candidates. Following on from that, there will be a voting, and following on from the voting, we will then get involved in contract negotiations with the selected candidates, and then hope to be able to appoint to the school community around June. What we've done in the period that we've been working on this is that we've worked up something that we refer to as a guideline. And in the guideline, what we've been looking at is, the first thing we've done is looked at the Constitution, or we've revealed to the Constitution, which, as you, I think, are aware and will go on being aware for the rest of the week, and what is very clearly outlined in this green document, is the relationship between the existing relationship between the AA school community and the AA Council and Association. The association of which the school is a part is a charity, and as under the charity and charity rules, it is the responsibility of that charity is within the trustees that are known as the council. There are 18 elected members of council, and people and the eligible members of people eligible for council are all of the membership, with the exception of the staff. Those 18 members of council sit on council meetings, and you know that you are able to join in those meetings. The school community, as far as the position of chair is concerned, has the responsibility of selecting a search committee to undertake this work of searching for a new head of school, and that search committee goes through the process by reference back to the school community to ultimately take forward to the council a recommendation of the identity of a new chair. That recommendation, then taken through to council, is then approved by council, we trust, and then on the approval of that by council, the appointment is then made. It's a slightly kind of odd position, because in a way you have one kind of authority in the school community to deal with its selection and deselection of the chair, and a contract condition in the chair's contract, which actually refers to the requirement of the chair to maintain the confidence of the school community at all times. And I think it's one of the issues that may be over the next 2 weeks, as you go through these seminar programs and discussions, I believe it is something that is worthy of some more thought. And I know that that is part of the ongoing debate as to whether the constitution of that functioning of the school community is the best it could be, or whether there could be a structure that might prove to be more relevant and robust. What's important to us is defining in a way what the chair of the AA does, and in a sense this is quite a unique position, certainly unique in any comparable architectural education within the UK. I don't know how unique across a global sphere it is. And it's unique in the sense that the chair inside this institution has almost, I would say absolute power is a bit strong, but in broad terms it is a very powerful position. And the chair, from a historical perspective, has an authority which allows the chair to give voice to a radical and innovative and pioneering program, so that the idea, the intellectual position from both the council and from the school is to not fetter the chair, to permit such a kind of new vision and passion to emerge and shape the school. And I think there's a belief and a trust that we all have in the school that it is a joyous and a better place for that notion of, or that degree of involvement. And so in a sense, when we're selecting the chair, it's very important to us to ensure that the candidate that's selected is capable of bringing that force of vision, intellect to that role. And so in a sense, the one thing we've set out is, in terms of the experience, or the primary requirement for experience, is the achievement as a professional with an international reputation in architecture, design or related fields, whether in practice, theory or education. And so we've actually tried to kind of be very specific about that, only in the sense of the stature of the individual. We have then put other aspects in terms of what we believe to be the experience, which includes the understanding or the clarity of the developing understanding of the role and relationship with council. Because of its uniqueness and because it's unlike any other situation in alternative universities, we consider that to be important. It's important that the chair understands the international role and standing of the AA School, and it's also that coming back to my point about the stature and the inspirational leadership to represent the school both at home and abroad. And we've added in a rather quaint management speak notion, which I think is a first for the AA, an inclusive team-building managerial style with ability to motivate, inspire and lead. Well, we look forward to seeing that in reality. So in a sense, that really describes very simply, that describes the position, that describes the process. Just to kind of reinforce, there obviously is a clarity just once again in this third stage, and I just want to go through that again, that the third stage, which is the stage at which we've identified the shortlist, the point at that point is that the school will present, the candidates will present to the school a statement of vision supporting their candidacy and outlining their ambitions for the school. The school community shall vote for the candidate preferred. This ballot will be secret and anonymous, and only the members of the school community should be entitled to participate in the selection. I'm not going to talk about the chair's duties. They are, in a way, fully covered or more covered in this outline, but I don't think they're worthy of discussion. I mean, they're not appropriate. You need to look at them and respond to them. I'll just reinforce the fact that this process of appointing the chair here is a process which involves you, the total community. It is a process of selection by the total community of bringing forward a recommendation. And that we are presenting, I think, today or tomorrow, the guidelines that we've prepared so far, which is, if you like, the sort of base from which we're going through with that assessment of those. And we would then welcome your response to chair search by email, and we propose to come back to you with an agenda picking up some of those comments on those guidelines on, I think, the 17th of November, where we will call a school community meeting with the appropriate notices and in the appropriate form and define the agenda, but just giving you an advance notice that that is the date. We would then hope that you will share with us and feel comfortable with us in supporting us through what's going to be an exciting process, both an exciting process for you over the next 2 weeks of reviewing these two elements of both the education, what the school should be, how it should be, what your views about the chair are, sharing that with us, and then, as I said, adding to that any ideas that you have on the overall constitution of the AA and the impact that that might have in the future. And I think at this stage I'm going to stop and request any questions if there are any, and I have all of my panel. I don't know whether anybody wants to add anything to the statement I've just made. from the search committee, that is. Okay, are there any questions? Yes.
Mark Brasman, from Heston School. The use of the word faculty, I just want to air this now, because we're not a faculty, and the spent most of the late 60s trying not to become a faculty. And the American collegiate description of the faculty was that either. And the staff representatives are staff representatives. And that's their name.
Thank you, Mark.
I mean, it was just probably something that slipped in there. I mean, from an American background, I probably put that in there. So consider it a typo, and then we'll change it to academic staff and administrative staff.
I thought actually it's probably worthwhile each of the search committee stating who they are, so you can identify which ones are which. So, Charles, do you want to?
I'm Charles Tashima.
I'm Sandra Morris.
My name is Bart Schonebeek.
My name is Joel Neiman.
I'm François Guyot.
I'm Julia King.
Are there any questions on the process that we've outlined, or the timetable, or the mechanism of the involvement of the school community? Yes.
How many candidates do you have for the position?
Well, as you can see from this timetable, we haven't got any candidates at the moment, but when we get to it, I think the shortlist is really going to be dependent upon the quality of the candidates we receive. I think that it could be 3, it could be 4, it could be 5. I think we have no fixed ideas. I think it's just really important that you have a good shortlist to make your selection from.
I mean, what we're doing now is just beginning to collect names. An official announcement for applications won't be until January. But I think what's very important from the community is not so much just in response or responding to this list of guidelines that we're going to have out tomorrow in terms of the criteria of the candidates. It has also a lot of things to do with the constitution of the school. I think for us it's very important also to get feedback in terms of potential candidates that would be offered, or you put names forward to pursue them.
Yes, Mark.
Sorry, you
It's
interviewed
too
the shortlisted candidates twice.
Yes, there's a first and second interview. No, it's not that we're interviewing the shortlist. To get to the shortlist, we're saying that, that we would go through two interviews.
So some of the issues raised in contract negotiations will be included in the second.
Well, in fact, what you will see when you see the detail of the guidelines is that because of the nature of the history of some of the contract negotiations in the past, we're trying this time round to see if we can't avoid them. So what we're doing, as well as dealing with the kind of schedule of duties, which is what's being outlined, is that we are proposing to turn that with the solicitors into sort of heads of terms. And so we will be asking each of the applicants that we get to an interview stage to respond to those heads of terms as part of that interview. So hopefully we're working off a kind of, we would hope to be working off an even keel when we come to this the selection process. Mark.
It's really to ask about the details towards the end. I mean, the school last time we had an election, I think, kind of took the wise decision that anyone who was going to appear before the school as like a final candidate, there would have been done a kind of draft contract. I don't think that has to be, the final contract, but as it were, it's the basis and constraint over that candidate. Above all, one wants to avoid the situation of electing a candidate who then has the negotiating committee over a barrel when it comes to things like kind of salary, whatever, because you don't go back to the beginning and start again. I think the second question which arises in my mind is what extent the voting procedure in the last final election should incorporate a level of preferential voting. I mean, again, it seems to me kind of, I mean, last time we had the unhappy circumstance, there was no fault of the candidate, of only having one candidate at the last moment. It seems to me we can do something to avoid that. But the question would be, is it in the search committee's mind that it be a sort of first past the post form of election or a preferential? And obviously there are arguments that can be made on both sides, but I think it's important to decide that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there are implications. And the school community needs to know what the implications of different systems of voting are, you know, when they approach the ballot box. I think the last thing, I mean, really is more one for the administration. I mean, in an ideal world, it's not to question your timetable, but in an ideal world, if one thinks of June at the AA, it's not the month that you choose in abstract to kind of have this election, given the hysteria of the rest of the school at that moment. And I think it needs someone at some point needs to kind of dovetail with the whole process of timetabling the end of the year events, so that we don't get into a terrible unforeseen set of timetabling clashes about kind of assessment and whatever of students. I think it's going to be difficult for everybody. I think it's unavoidable. But as it were, someone needs to sort of sit down with the registry or whatever and work out a timetable before Christmas.
I want to widen these three questions because I think they're three very important questions. The first point I think that we have covered, I've answered Mark, and I think that to say that it will be our view that before we make a selection shortlist, the terms and conditions should really be approved by each of the members on the shortlist. Now, you can't really get a signed contract on a bipart before you go through that process. It's unreasonable, but you can at least ensure that that's the only mechanism I can think of that we can actually deal with that contract procedure. I think the actual first past the post methods of voting, I think, should be something, my view is that this is something that we want the school community to come back to us on, in a sense, and to give us a view as to, we can have a further debate on it, and maybe that's the relevant thing to move that debate or to have that discussion in the next school community meeting. I want other people to comment on that. As far as the timetable is concerned, I'd like Joel to comment, but I think that, as I understood it, if we can get this early date of the 7th to the 11th of March, then the voting is going to follow immediately beyond that. So all we're saying beyond that date, that early date of the 7th to 11th of March, is that we're then going through the finalisation of the contract. So that should then bring us much earlier into the appointment by council. So that gives us a month. But Joel, do you want to comment on that?
Well, my feeling would be that, given that in the third term, I think there's actually very little in terms of evening events. Because of this process, I think, even though everyone is very busy with coursework and coming towards the end of the year, I think there should be time enough for all of us to actually attend some of the presentations by the candidates. That would be my...
I mean, regarding also dovetailing, I mean, these two times, the 7th to the 11th of March and the 9th to 13th of May, were discussed with Belinda already in terms of fitting it in the schedule. I mean, ideally, we would want the earlier, the 7th to the 11th of March, but just in light of seeing, in terms of making sure that we have, good candidates to present, therefore there's the option of the 9th to 13th of May.
Can we come back to this question of the first past the post? Francois, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, we started to have that discussion. You'll see in the guidelines that we're opening that discussion to the rest of the community. As Mark said, there are really, you can advocate the two positions. I think it's also one of our questions is how you the responsibility you put when you actually do your vote, and we would like to emphasize really that responsibility. So that would go in, that would rather go towards first past the post. But on the other hand, it's more representative if we select more a kind of a choice method. So it's open for discussion. We'll come back to that during the next agenda and during the next school community meeting. But that's something that we're inviting actually the school to talk about and to during those 2 weeks.
Sandra, would you like to comment on that as well, on your thoughts on the voting on the first vote? I think your view is that, isn't it, that the danger with not doing the first past the post is you get somebody that you don't actually want.
Yeah. It's a bit, I mean, I think we have to put it more clearly to everybody what the implications are. But my feeling was that if you don't have first past the post, you always end up with what you might call the common denominator rather than necessarily the best person. So. But I think that we can discuss that much more fully.
Any other questions? Yes. Sorry.
I would like to, let's take the hypothetical scenario that the persons that you come in contact, they're not good enough. Meaning they're not feeling the...
They're not of the quality.
They're not of the quality. Yeah. What is the plan B? Do you have any sort of plan B, or for getting, because this one is hypothetical, but it's quite, on the other hand, it's quite interesting to start thinking of, if there is no chairman, if there is no possible person that can be a chairman, can we start discussing whether we should have a chairman or not in the AA? Meaning, because of the fact that you said before that the chairman is a person who has a great authority, and a misuse of that kind of authority can take the school really, really down. That's a hypothetical scenario, but are you going to discuss in general whether the notion of or the position of a non-chairman type of school can exist?
Well, personally, I'm not. No, I'm here to chair a selection committee, and we just hope, we believe, in a sense, we're optimistic enough to believe that this is an opportunity of such excitement that we are going to find, as we have in the past, a candidate that is right for us, and that is obviously put through the process of selection. I think there is something very important in your question, which I don't want to. I want to hold. I want to kind of bring up again, which is the issue of the statement you made